5, 4, 3.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Vinyl Thoughts. Looks a little bit different back there, huh? That's because I'm in the middle of moving, so all the records are packed up and ready to go. But you know what? I'm still here to bring you guys whatever the fuck I'm going to bring you. So today, we're actually going to be talking about another soundtrack. It's been a while since I've done a Vinyl Thoughts, first off on only one album, but also on a soundtrack. It's been a little while. So I thought today we would talk about the soundtrack to one of my favorite movies of all time, probably my favorite comedy of all time. It's at least in the top 5, but we're going to talk about the soundtrack to the movie Wayne's World.
No way.
So Wayne's World came out in February of 1992 when I was in the 8th grade. And I was already a big Saturday Night Live fan and a fan of the Wayne's World sketches because I was a young, burgeoning, metal dude. So I, related to the characters. And then the movie came out, and I think I saw it in the theater the first weekend it came out. And I was absolutely floored. It was the perfect movie for me at the time. I think I saw it 5 or 6 times in the theater after that, just because it was perfect. I don't know. I'm sure all of you out there have 1 or 2 movies that just came out at the right time, and it just felt like they had made that movie for you. And that's exactly what Wayne's World was. It had the humor that I loved. It had music that I loved. It had Tia Carrere.
She's a babe.
And so it was absolutely perfect. And of course, I went and bought the soundtrack soon after seeing it, although at that point I bought it on CD. But today we're going to talk about a recent vinyl reissue of the soundtrack. So this version of the soundtrack was released in 2017, and it was part of this series of releases that Rhino Records does called Rocktober. It's like a huge month-long thing where they do special reissues of certain albums. And this is the one they put out of Wayne's World. I guess first off, let's just look at the records, because the cool part of the records is that they're, one of them is blue. My hair's just sticking to the record. There you go, the blue one. And then the second one is pink, and it's kind of like a pink marble kind of thing going on. Oh, it's upside down. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty fucking cool in itself. Now, when it comes to the music on the soundtrack, that's actually pretty interesting, because sure, you've got, Bohemian Rhapsody, because that was a big deal in the movie. And at the time, it actually brought that song back into the charts. It was a pretty big thing for Wayne's World and for Queen. But also, I'll run down the bands that are on here. So obviously we have Queen, we have Cinderella, the Bullet Boys. So already we're still kind of in the 80s hard rock kind of thing. Gary Wright with Dreamweaver, which is, I believe it's a 70s song. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Black Sabbath with the song Time Machine, which was when Dio got back together with Black Sabbath briefly. Obviously, and then you have the Wayne's World theme by Wayne and Garth. And then you got 2 songs by Tia Carrere, because apparently she actually could sing. And so the song, she does Ballroom Blitz, the cover of the Sweet song. I believe it's the Sweet. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then later on, she does another song called Why You Want to Break My Heart, which, it's whatever. But, she's on the fucking soundtrack. And then there's Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix, another, funny scene in the movie. Feed My Frankenstein by Alice Cooper.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Yeah. So, and then what else? Rhino Bucket, and then Eric Clapton. So if you look at what's on there, it's really interesting, because sure, you got some sort of classic kind of things going on, and then you got some 80s stuff, but you got stuff like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Rhino Bucket that were coming into the 90s. And that was the interesting thing about when Wayne's World came out, because it came out in 1992 in February. And just, I believe, 6 months prior, Nirvana's Nevermind had come out. And then a couple months before that, Metallica's Black Album had come out. And so metal and rock in general was like booming.
I was not aware of that.
And so the interest in like rock music and heavy music was at an all-time high. And the grunge thing hadn't yet eclipsed and removed all of the 80s stuff from the face of the planet. So there was still that thing of like everyone just getting into rock and roll and rock music. And so this movie literally came out at the exact perfect time that I think it should have come out. I think if it came out earlier or later, it wouldn't have been as successful. I mean, look at Wayne's World 2. I mean, it's not as good of a movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I think also it came out at a time where people were kind of like, yeah, we've moved on from that.
Car! Game on! Game on!
And really, when you compare it to some of the other soundtracks that came out prior that are some of my favorites, it's a little bit weak, but it's a pretty fun listen. Hold on, there were other things that I wanted to cover. Let me look at my note cards here for a second. Okay. So honestly, because I do like the 80s hard rock, my favorites on the album are the Cinderella song Hot and Bothered, which I think they later put on their fourth album, but it was recorded pretty much just for this soundtrack at the time. And then I really like Feed My Frankenstein by Alice Cooper. It's just a fun song. That's that era where Alice Cooper had made that big resurgence, and he was on top again. And so, I don't know. Overall, like I said, it's a very enjoyable soundtrack, especially if you're a really big fan of the movie, because there's a lot of songs that are used in the movie. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen it. If you haven't, what the fuck is your problem? It holds up even today. Like I watched the movie, I think, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago or something, and it was just as enjoyable. Now, do I have a lot of nostalgia attached to the movie? Abso-fucking-lutely I do, so maybe that's part of it. But whatever, it's still one of my favorite movies of all time. Oh yeah, and that Red Hot Chili Peppers song is pretty fucking cool too. So anyway, the Wayne's World soundtrack. It's yeah, if you're a fan of the movie, I highly recommend going and listening to it and picking it up. I'm not really sure if it's... Soundtracks are weird because I'm not really sure if you can just go stream a full soundtrack on Apple Music or Spotify, but I'm sure you can find all of the songs that are on here anyway. And this Rocktober 2017 edition is a pretty fucking cool reissue. It sounds pretty good, and the vinyl, like you saw before, is also really cool.
Does this guy know how to party or what?
So of course, another very famous sort of rock and roll buddy movie, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, is getting a third sequel. It's supposed to come out this summer with the whole coronavirus thing. Who fucking knows? But that immediately led me to think about, oh man, what if they did the same thing for Wayne's World? What if they made a Wayne's World 3?
It might happen. Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Part of me hopes that they won't. But you know what? If they came up with a really fucking cool script, why not? I would fucking go see it. They would already have my money.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
So anyway, that's about all I have to talk about for the Wayne's World soundtrack. There might be a little break in videos. I'm going to try to make sure that there's not, but you know, I'm doing a big move. So once I get everything set up again, I'll be back and I'll be rocking and in your fucking face again, just talking about some bullshit. So thank you for continuing to watch my shit. If this is your first time watching, please like and subscribe and all those things, and feel free to comment. And then go find me on all my social medias, you know, all the usual bullshit. Anyway, that's all I got for today. I will see you all again, hopefully very soon.
Dang.
You know, I don't think anyone's gonna tell us when to leave.
Yeah, good call, Garth. I'll bet we're just gonna sit here, and when they're finished, they'll fade to black.
I can't believe they did that.
I told ya.